Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for September 19, 2022, the Queen Elizabeth Funeral Edition. And we begin with the story literally on every major paper in the world of the funeral today of Queen Elizabeth II at Westminster in London, England. And take a moment to think about what Queen Elizabeth meant to England and indeed the rest of the world. She didn't rule with power, she ruled with legitimacy, or reigned rather with legitimacy. And that's a lesson that I think every compliance professional, indeed every business executive, needs to take into account. That leads directly into our next story from the Financial Times. The new English, or British I should say, Prime Minister Liz Truss, her chief of staff is engaged with the FBI in a bribery probe. It involves allegations of illegal donations to the ex-governor of Puerto Rico. And the U.S. is looking into investigation into UK conservative party donors charged over violations they provided illegal campaign donations to the former governor in Puerto Rico. So the sleaze in England continues. Next up, a major announcement and speech from Assistant Attorney General Kenneth Polite, who delivered remarks at the University of Texas Law School on Friday. In this, he specified that the DOJ is now going to be looking directly to companies to institute clawbacks against executives who engage in bribery and corruption, and that this will be something that needs to happen literally during the investigation. He also announced policy revisions in a couple of areas. The criminal division will examine guidance necessary for corporate practices on personal devices and third-party messaging apps, and shift the focus of the burden of corporate financial penalties away from shareholders directly onto those responsible, whether that's on clawbacks or something else. That remains to be seen. Polite also emphasized the CCO certification will move forward, and that for CCOs who are worried about them being set up, it's sort of TS, baby. And our final story comes to us from the New York Times. From the Wall Street Journal. There's a lot of commentary about quiet quitting, and now employers are trying to fight this by putting in excessive and intrusive monitoring down to the number of keystrokes that employees put on their computer. These employers obviously don't understand that busy work does not equal productivity, and indeed even activism is, and it's only going to make things worse for those who think their jobs are crap already. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.